human sat alone inside the cold chamber of the alien ship. Metal walls glowed with a faint blue light, humming with strange energy. He could not move much. His hands were locked by a glowing restraint that felt weightless, but stronger than steel. The aliens stood around him tall and thin, their eyes bright like mirrors. They did not speak with mouths, but with sharp echoing voices that filled the air without sound. The human, a young astronaut named Daniel, looked at them calmly. He was breathing slowly, his face steady, showing no fear. The aliens had studied many species across the galaxy. They thought they understood life. They believed strength came from size, from weapons, from logic. To them, humans were weak, emotional, and short-lived. In their records, humans were marked as a primitive species, still fighting wars over land and food, still wasting time on things like music, painting, and stories. But as they watched Daniel, something felt wrong. He was not acting like the others they had captured before. There was no panic in his eyes, no desperate begging for life. Instead, his gaze moved from wall to wall, quietly studying every detail of the ship. The leader of the aliens, a figure with a silver crown of light above its head, stepped closer. "This human is calm," the leader said in a voice that echoed across the chamber. "Too calm. They break easily. They always break." Daniel only smiled. A small smile, the kind that hides secrets. He did not answer. The aliens ran tests. They shined lights into his eyes, scanned his body, and measured his brainwaves. The machines showed unusual results. His heart was beating slowly, steadily, like he was in complete control of himself. His brain was active, but not with fear. The patterns were strange. Waves of memory, imagination, and something else the aliens could not name. One alien tilted its head. "He is not resisting. He is not afraid." The leader frowned. "All species fear us. That is natural order." Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm, almost quiet. "You think you understand humans, but you don't." The chamber went silent. The aliens looked at each other, confused. They were used to screams, not calm words. "What makes you so confident, human?" the leader asked. Daniel leaned back as much as the glowing chains allowed. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Because fear is not the only thing that drives us." The aliens could not understand. For them, fear was the strongest force in the galaxy. Fear kept species in control. Fear made armies obey. Fear kept their empire alive. But here was a fragile creature from a small planet speaking like he knew something greater. The leader wanted to test him further. They changed the walls of the chamber. Images of fire and storms appeared around Daniel. The floor shook as if the ship itself was falling. The air grew heavy, pressing on his lungs. But Daniel stayed calm. He closed his eyes and remembered Earth, the blue sky, the sound of rain, the laughter of his sister when they were children. He remembered running through forests, climbing mountains and sitting under the stars, dreaming of other worlds. His breathing stayed steady. His body refused to break. The aliens were unsettled. "Impossible," one of them whispered. "He resists the fear chamber." The leader leaned closer, his glowing eyes studying every detail of the human's face. "What are you hiding? What is your species' secret?" Daniel opened his eyes. For the first time there was fire in them. Not anger, but determination. "You'll see soon enough," he said. The aliens stepped back. A strange silence filled the chamber. They had expected weakness. They had expected tears. Instead, they found a mystery, a human who refused to follow the rules of fear. And in that moment, though they would not admit it, something new entered their minds. A small seed of doubt. A small spark of fear. Not for the human's body, but for his mind. Because deep inside, the aliens realized something dangerous. This human was not like the others, and if one human could resist them, what would happen if all of humanity learned to do the same? The hum of the ship grew louder. The aliens ended the test, but none of them spoke. Their thoughts were heavy. The human sat in silence, still wearing that small, secret smile. He knew the game had only just begun. The next cycle began with light. A bright beam washed across the chamber, and the human, Daniel, opened his eyes slowly. His restraints were gone now, though alien guards stood nearby. They were not worried. To them he was fragile, a creature of flesh and bone. No human could ever escape an alien ship. Two tall figures entered the room. They carried no weapons, only long silver rods, glowing with symbols. They gestured for Daniel to stand. He obeyed without fear. The leader's voice filled the chamber again, though his mouth did not move. Human. Today you will teach us about your kind. We wish to understand the shape of your culture. Daniel raised one eyebrow. He almost laughed. Aliens with starships and cities built on light wanted to ask him about Earth. Still, he nodded. All right, ask. The aliens brought him into a new hall. Unlike the cold prison, this chamber was bright and vast. Walls shimmered with images. Stars, strange animals, and machines that looked alive. Dozens of alien scientists gathered, their mirrored eyes reflecting his every move. One spoke, its voice like glass breaking. Tell us about human food. Daniel chuckled softly. Food? Yes, what fuels your kind? We have studied your proteins and sugars. They are inefficient, primitive. Explain why you eat. In groups. Daniel smiled faintly. Because food is more than fuel. On Earth, people share meals with family, with friends. We don't just eat to survive. We eat to feel close, to belong. The aliens tilted their heads, confused. Inefficient, one whispered. Dangerous waste of time. Another asked, what is this? Music. We intercepted signals from your planet, vibrations of air with no meaning. Daniel's eyes softened. Music is meaning. It makes us remember, dream, hope. When we play music, even sadness can turn into strength. The aliens laughed, a sharp metallic echo. Strange species. To turn weakness into power is illogical. But Daniel saw something. For the first time, the laughter did not sound confident. It sounded nervous. Then they showed him an object, his notebook taken from his pocket when they captured him. On its cover was a simple sketch. Earth under the stars. What is this? The leader asked. Symbols with no data. Pictures with no function. Daniel stepped closer. He touched the notebook gently, almost like greeting an old friend. That is my memory. My story. Humans draw to hold on to what we love, what we fear. This is not useless. This is survival in another way. The aliens studied the paper in silence. Their species had abandoned art long ago, believing only numbers and facts mattered. To them, a drawing was noise, a distraction. Yet as they stared, something stirred in their mirrored eyes. Daniel noticed. And he smiled again, wider this time. You think we are weak because we feel, but that's what makes us dangerous. We imagine what doesn't exist yet. We make stories before they are real, and sometimes we make them real. The chamber grew tense. No alien spoke for a long time. Finally, the leader asked, why do you speak with such calm? Do you not fear us? Daniel met his gaze. His voice was steady. Fear is there. But fear is not the master. It's just the shadow. What we choose to do, that's who we are. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Their entire empire was built on fear. If fear was only a shadow, then what foundation did they truly have? One alien scientist stepped forward, breaking the silence. Enough. Show him the archive. The walls changed. Now Daniel saw images of Earth, wars, bombs, pollution, hunger. Human weakness displayed like wounds across history. The leader's voice turned cold. This is your true culture. Violence, destruction, division. Your kind is no threat. You are chaos, and chaos destroys itself. Daniel looked at the images carefully. He did not deny them. Instead, he nodded slowly. Yes, that is part of us. We fight. We make mistakes. We destroy. He paused, then raised his head, eyes burning with quiet fire. But we also rebuild. Again and again. That is something you don't understand. The aliens froze. Daniel stepped forward, his voice stronger now. You think our stories, our songs, our meals together are weaknesses, but they are the reason we endure. Even when the world breaks, we rise again. That is our culture. That is our strength. The chamber fell silent again. The aliens looked at him with mirrored eyes, but for the first time they did not look amused. They looked unsettled. The leader turned away, his voice sharp. Enough for today. Return him to his chamber. Guards moved in, but not fast enough to hide the truth. The aliens were shaken, and as Daniel walked back under their watch, a thought stirred in their minds like a whisper of thunder. Perhaps they had miscalculated. The aliens believed every creature had a breaking point. Fear might not have crushed the human, but there were other ways. Daniel was taken to a new chamber. It was larger, darker, with moving platforms and shifting walls. Strange machines hummed, releasing energy into the air. It felt heavy, almost like gravity itself was being twisted. The leader's voice echoed across the chamber. Human, today we measure your limits. Daniel stood at the center, unchained now, but surrounded by guards holding rods of light. He looked around calmly. Go ahead, he said quietly. The floor shifted. Suddenly the weight on his body doubled. His knees bent slightly as the artificial gravity pressed down on him. The aliens watched with mirrored eyes. Most species collapse within minutes, one scientist whispered. Daniel straightened his back. His face was calm, though sweat began to form at his temples. He breathed deeply, steady and slow. The gravity increased again. His arms trembled, but he clenched his fists. His mind returned to Earth, training days at the academy, running with a heavy pack, climbing rocky hills under the burning sun. He whispered to himself, one more step. Always one more. The aliens leaned closer, curious. He resists, one muttered. Minutes passed. The floor grew heavier. His body shook, but he refused to kneel. Finally, the leader raised a hand. The gravity eased. Daniel stood tall again, chest rising and falling with slow breaths. He did not collapse. He did not beg. The aliens whispered among themselves. Impossible. His bones should crack. His muscles should fail. The leader turned sharply. Begin the endurance trial. A door opened, and a new machine appeared. It looked like a spinning wheel of blades glowing with sharp light. The aliens gestured for Daniel to climb onto a platform at its center. Run, the leader commanded. The floor beneath him began to move, faster and faster. It was like running on a collapsing bridge. Daniel started at a steady pace, his eyes fixed forward. The air was hot, burning against his skin, faster. His breath grew heavy. His legs burned. The aliens expected him to fall, to give up. But Daniel remembered nights of running under the rain, pushing himself even when every muscle screamed. He remembered his commander's voice. Pain is not the end. Pain is the teacher. So he ran harder. The alien's eyes glowed brighter. This human refuses to yield. Hours seemed to pass inside the chamber. Finally, the machine slowed. Daniel staggered but stayed upright. He looked at the aliens with a faint smile. Is that all? He asked softly. The scientists were unsettled. Never had a subject survived both trials without breaking. The leader narrowed his glowing eyes. Strength of body is one thing, but we will see his mind falter. They placed a device on Daniel's head, a crown of wires and light. Images poured into his mind, visions of fire, screams, death. His family crying, earth burning, endless, failure. The machine was designed to shatter the will of even the strongest warrior. Daniel gasped once, but then, silence. He closed his eyes. The aliens waited. They expected tears, shouting, collapse. But instead, Daniel's lips moved, whispering, something, a song, a simple tune, one his mother used to sing when he was a child, quiet at first, then stronger. The pain was still there, but the song wrapped around it like a shield. The leader frowned. What is he doing? He is resisting the simulation, a scientist answered, confused. Daniel opened his eyes, steady and calm. You think pain controls us, but pain is not the end. We carry it. We turn it into strength. The alien stepped back. For them, suffering always ended in surrender. But this human had taken it and made it fuel. The chamber grew quiet. The leader's voice was sharp but unsure. No creature can resist forever. He is only one. Daniel gave a tired smile. His voice was low but strong. One is enough to show you the truth. The silence that followed was heavier than any test. The aliens had expected to see weakness. Instead, they had seen a different kind of power. The power to endure, to keep standing when everything tried to break him. And deep inside, the aliens felt something they did not want to admit. A small crack forming in their certainty. Because, for the first time, they wondered, if one human can endure this much, and what could all of them endure together? The chamber was quiet after the last trial. The alien scientists whispered among themselves, their mirrored eyes shifting uneasily. None had expected the human to last so long. None had expected him to look stronger at the end than at the start. Daniel stood at the center, still breathing hard, sweat on his forehead, but his gaze steady. He felt their doubt, even if they tried to hide it. The leader entered again, his crown of light burning brighter, his voice echoing across the hall. This means nothing, he declared. Your body is stubborn, but that is all. Machines break, bones break. You will break. Daniel tilted his head slightly, almost amused. You don't understand, do you? The aliens froze. Never had a prisoner spoken so boldly. The leader stepped closer. Explain yourself, human. Daniel's voice was calm but sharp, cutting through the silence. You believe strength is measured by power, by weapons, by control, by fear. But you're wrong. True strength is measured by how much one can endure, and still rise again. The aliens murmured, unsettled. The leader raised a hand, and the walls around them shifted. In an instant, the chamber transformed into a vision of alien power. Towers of light appeared, endless fleets of warships, weapons that could shatter planets. The images glowed brighter than suns, filling every corner with their overwhelming presence. This is strength, the leader said. We command worlds. We shape stars. Your species crawls on a single small planet, wasting its life on songs and wars. Daniel watched quietly. Then he smiled, not in mockery, but in quiet defiance. You may command the stars, he said, but you don't understand why we look at them. You see stars as fuel, as territory. We see them as hope, as home waiting to be found. That's the difference. The chamber fell silent. The aliens could not answer. Daniel took a slow step forward, his voice steady. Your weapons can destroy us, yes, but what you can't destroy is the idea of us. Humans imagine more than what we see. That is our weapon. That is our shield. The leader's glowing eyes narrowed. Imagination is weakness. It distracts from survival. Daniel shook his head. No, imagination is survival. Without it, we would have died on our first day. We imagined fire, and we survived the cold. We imagined tools, and we survived the beasts. We imagined flight, and we left the ground. And one day we imagined the stars, and now here I stand before you. The words struck the aliens like thunder. Their entire empire was built on logic, on control. But this fragile creature was claiming dreams were stronger than their machines. The scientist whispered nervously. One said, if he speaks truth, then their kind may not be as weak as we believed. The leader's voice snapped back, loud and harsh. "Silence!" But Daniel saw the crack. A small one, hidden behind the leader's fury, and he pressed harder. "You think fear is the chain that binds us. But fear only pushes us to rise higher. You think suffering will break us. But suffering teaches us. You think death will stop us. But our stories outlive death. You will never win against a species that turns every weakness into strength." The alien stared at him, some with anger, some with confusion, and a few with something close to fear. The leader tried to regain control. He raised his crown of light, and the walls showed visions of human wars, blood, and endless destruction. "This is what you are," the leader thundered. "Chaos. A danger to yourselves. You do not deserve the stars." Daniel's voice was quiet, but carried more weight than the leader's roar. "You're right. We are chaos. But out of chaos comes creation. That's why you fear us, because we are not perfect, because we fall, and yet we rise again. Always." For a moment no one spoke. Even the hum of the ship seemed to fade. The aliens were looking at him differently now, not as prey, not as a fragile creature, but as something unpredictable, something dangerous in a way they had never measured. The leader turned his back sharply. His voice was clipped, almost trembling. "Take him away." The guards obeyed, leading Daniel back to his chamber. But their steps were slower, their eyes avoiding his. Daniel sat down on the cold floor once more, but this time he smiled. Not the small secret smile of before, but something larger, because he had seen it, the crack in their armor, the doubt in their eyes, and he knew that doubt would grow. For the first time, the aliens had realized a truth they did not want to face. Maybe humans could not be controlled the way other species were. And if that was true, then their empire had a problem far greater than one lone prisoner. The aliens believed they had seen everything a human could do. They had measured Daniel's body, tested his mind, and tried to break his spirit. Yet still he stood, quiet and unbroken. But the next trial was different. Daniel was brought to a wide chamber filled with strange machines. The air buzzed with static energy, and in the center was a creature, small, fragile, and trembling. It was not human. It was another alien species, chained and weak, its skin pale and its eyes full of fear. The leader appeared once more, his crown of light glowing harshly. "Human," he said, "we wish to see how you treat weakness. This creature is nothing, worthless. You may do with it as you wish." The guards stepped back. The room went silent. Daniel looked at the small alien, then at the leader. He understood the test. They wanted him to crush the helpless being, to prove humans were violent and selfish. For a long moment he said nothing. He knelt slowly, his eyes level with the creature's. The little alien whimpered, expecting pain, but Daniel smiled gently. "It's all right," he whispered. His voice was soft, warm, so unlike the cold hum of the chamber. Then, to the shock of every alien watching, Daniel removed his outer jacket and wrapped it around the trembling creature. Carefully, he loosened its chains, ignoring the confused murmurs from the scientists. The small alien blinked, trembling even more, but this time not from fear, from something new. Hope. The leader's voice cut the silence. "What are you doing, human? That thing is weak. Why waste your energy?" Daniel looked up, his eyes calm but burning. "Because weakness does not erase worth. On Earth, we protect those who cannot protect themselves. That's what makes us human." The chamber erupted with whispers. The aliens did not understand. To them, weakness was useless. Mercy was illogical. One scientist hissed, "This behavior, it makes no sense. Why help something that cannot help you back?" Daniel stood, still shielding the small creature behind him. His voice carried through the chamber. "Because one day the weak may become strong, and even if they don't, they still deserve life." The aliens recoiled. The word deserve was not in their empire's vocabulary. Worth was measured only in power. Yet here was a human, claiming that life itself had value without power. The leader tried to cover his unease with anger. You claim mercy is strength? Foolish. Mercy will destroy you. Daniel shook his head. No. Mercy creates allies. Mercy builds trust. Mercy is what keeps us alive when power fails. Your empire will never understand this. For the first time, the leader had no response. His glowing eyes flickered as if unsure. But the shock was not over. The small alien, weak as it was, crawled forward and clutched Daniel's hand. The gesture was simple, but it made the chamber tremble with silence. A connection had been made, something the Empire had never seen between prisoner and victim. Daniel bent down, whispering softly, "You're safe now." The scientists stepped back, disturbed. One muttered, He created loyalty without force." Another whispered, "This is more dangerous than endurance." The leader's crown flared angrily. "Enough. Remove the creature." Guards rushed forward and dragged the small alien away, but not before it looked back at Daniel with wide, grateful eyes. The leader turned to Daniel, furious. "You think kindness will save you? You think empathy is power?" Daniel's answer was quiet, but it cut like a blade. "It already has, because now you've seen it and you can't unsee it." The chamber fell silent once again. The aliens, who ruled by fear, had just witnessed something beyond their understanding. Power, through compassion. For them, fear bound empires together, but Daniel had shown them a different chain, one invisible yet stronger. Trust, born from mercy, and that terrified them more than any weapon. As guards led Daniel back to his chamber, the scientists whispered in low, uneasy tones. "If humans can make allies this way," one said, "they could unite species against us," another finished. The leader said nothing. His glowing crown dimmed slightly, as though even his power could not hide the crack forming in their belief. Daniel sat once more in his cell. His body was tired, but his heart was steady. He closed his eyes and remembered Earth again. His sister's laughter, his mother's song, the way strangers helped each other after storms and disasters. That was humanity's secret. Not strength, not fear, but the simple, stubborn choice to care. And he knew the aliens had just learned the most dangerous lesson of all, because mercy, once seen, could never be forgotten. The halls of the alien ship were filled with silence. For the first time, the scientists avoided speaking about their prisoner in confident tones. The guards looked uneasy, and even the leader, whose crown of light once burned with pride, seemed dimmer. Daniel sat in his chamber, quiet but alert. He knew something had shifted. The aliens were no longer certain of him. They had seen strength in his endurance, calm in his defiance, and now mercy in his choices. He could feel it. Their fear was no longer about his body. It was about what he represented. Soon the door opened again. Guards led him to a great hall larger than any chamber before. At its center stood a circle of alien leaders, each with glowing crowns brighter than the stars. Their mirrored eyes all turned toward him. "This is the final study," the leader announced. His voice echoed across the hall, though it lacked the sharpness it once carried. "We have seen your body, your pain, your mercy. Now we demand to know what truly makes your kind believe you are strong." Daniel stood calmly in the center, surrounded by towering figures. He could have spoken of technology, of weapons, of human armies, but instead he looked up at them and said one word. "Imagination," the aliens murmured, confused. "Explain," one demanded. Daniel's voice was steady. "You see only what exists. We see what could exist. That is why you fear us. Because humans do not stop at limits, we dream of what lies beyond them. And when we dream long enough, we make it real." The walls flickered with images as the aliens replayed Earth's history. They showed humans in caves, striking stones together for fire. They showed fragile boats crossing endless oceans. They showed planes lifting into the sky, rockets piercing the void. Every step, Daniel said, pointing at the images, was impossible. Until we made it possible. That is imagination. That is our power. The aliens stared, their mirrored eyes reflecting images of human progress. For them, logic ruled all. They created machines by calculation, not by wonder. But this human claimed that wonder itself could be a weapon. One of the council spoke, voice uneasy. Dreams do not win wars. Daniel's answer was quick. Then, why are you afraid of mine? The words hit like lightning. The hall grew still. Daniel continued, his voice rising. You believe fear controls us, but fear fuels our imagination. You lock us in cages. We dream of escape. You push us down. We dream of rising higher. Every time the world tries to break us, we imagine a better one, and then we build it. The leaders shifted, their crowns flickering. Some tried to laugh, but it sounded hollow. Others whispered in voices that shook. Another leader asked, "And what of your violence? Your wars? Your endless destruction?" Daniel did not look away. Yes, we destroy, but we also rebuild, stronger, smarter. Our chaos does not end us, it creates us. That is what you don't understand. We are not strong because we are perfect. We are strong because we are broken, and still we rise. The chamber filled with silence again. The aliens who had seen themselves as eternal rulers now saw a truth they could not erase. Humans were dangerous, not because of weapons, but because of their ability to imagine a world beyond fear. Then, Daniel did something unexpected. He took a small piece of scrap metal from the floor, a fragment left from the testing machines. With a sharp edge, he scratched lines into it. Slowly, carefully, he carved a picture. A small figure standing under stars. A human looking up. He held it out to the leaders. This is who we are, he said. One alone, looking up at something. Greater, weak, fragile, but never stopping. Always dreaming. The aliens stared at the crude drawing. To them, art was worthless. Yet something about it unsettled them more than any weapon could. It was not just a picture. It was proof that even with nothing, humans created meaning. The leader's crown flickered again, dimmer than before. His voice was sharp, but it wavered. You are dangerous, human. Not because of what you can do now, but because of what you might do tomorrow. Daniel met his gaze, calm and unafraid. Now you understand. The hall fell into a silence so deep it felt endless. The aliens had studied countless species across the stars, but none had shaken them like this fragile creature. They realized something terrifying. Humans were not a threat because of strength, or numbers, or even technology. Humans were a threat because of the ideas they carried, and ideas could not be chained. The leaders whispered among themselves, but Daniel could hear the fear in their voices. It was not fear of one man, but of an entire species with fire in its imagination, and for the first time the Empire felt uncertain of its future. The alien council had seen enough. For hours they whispered in voices sharp as glass, their mirrored eyes flashing with unease. The chamber of light, once a symbol of their control, now felt smaller, weaker. And at the center stood Daniel, calm, unbroken and quietly watching. The leader finally rose, his crown of light burning dim but steady. His voice filled the hall, though it no longer carried the same unshakable power. Human, he said. We have measured you. We have tested you. You have endured. Yet you are only one. Why should we believe your species holds this strength you speak of? Daniel looked up, meeting every mirrored eye around him. His voice was calm, but it echoed louder than any machine. Because I am not special. I am just one of many. And if one of us can stand here before you, then imagine what all of us could do. The chamber froze. Those words cut deeper than any trial. The council could no longer pretend this was only about one man. He was a mirror of something greater, a shadow of an entire species that refused to bow. The leader's crown flickered uncertainly. If what you say is true, then humans are dangerous. Too dangerous to be left free among the stars. Daniel stepped forward, his eyes steady. Or too valuable to ignore. The choice is yours. The silence that followed was heavy. The aliens, rulers of countless worlds, were afraid, not of the human's strength, but of his possibility. Finally, the leader turned to the council. He cannot remain here. His kind will learn of us. If they all share this spirit, then they may rise against us. Another council member spoke softly, "Destroy him." But another hissed back, "No. Destroying him proves his words. Mercy shows control." The voices clashed louder and louder until the chamber trembled with their uncertainty. Daniel stood still, waiting. He knew their fear was already his victory. At last, the leader raised a hand. The chamber fell silent. His crown dimmed as though weighed down by doubt. "Release him," the leader said. The guards stared, shocked. "But, release him," the leader repeated, sharper. "Let him return to his world. Let humans believe we spared him. Their stories will grow, yes, but perhaps stories are easier to control than armies." The guards obeyed, though uneasily. Daniel felt the restraints vanish. His body was free again, but more than that, his spirit felt lighter. The leader leaned closer, his voice low, almost a warning. "Go, human. Return to your fragile world. But know this. We will watch you. And if your kind becomes too dangerous, we will act." Daniel met his glowing eyes. "Then you'd better watch closely, because this is only the beginning." The council shifted uneasily. His calm defiance was more frightening than any threat. Moments later, Daniel was escorted through endless corridors until he reached a hangar bay. The doors opened, revealing the black sea of space. His small ship, repaired and waiting, hovered nearby. The guards pushed him forward, but none dared meet his eyes. He climbed inside the cockpit, the controls humming back to life under his touch. The ship detached from the alien vessel. Daniel looked back one last time. The massive alien warship loomed like a floating fortress, its lights cold and unblinking. Yet he smiled, not in victory, but in certainty, because he knew what they had seen. He knew what they feared. It wasn't him. It wasn't one man. It was the idea of humanity, an idea they could not cage. The stars stretched before him, endless and waiting. His ship drifted toward the blue curve of Earth in the distance. He imagined the moment he would return, the stories he would tell, the warnings he would share, and he knew the aliens would never forget. Somewhere inside that great ship, the leaders whispered in silence. Their empire had ruled for centuries, unshaken by any foe. But tonight one human had planted doubt in their hearts. They had expected weakness. They had found resilience. They had expected fear. They had found mercy. They had expected silence. They had found imagination. And most of all, they had expected control. But they had found something uncontrollable. A spark that, given time, could become a fire bright enough to burn across the galaxy. The leader of the council stared at the fading trail of the human ship. His crown flickered, dim with unease. "Humans," he whispered. "Dangerous not because of what they are, but because of what they may become." And in the deep silence of the stars, for the first time in ages, the Empire felt something it had not known in centuries, not certainty, not control, but fear, real human fear.